When you think of esports, what goes through your mind? League of Legends, Dota, CS, Valorant maybe? At least in my case it does. But what if I told you that the next big esports title is Tic-Tac-Bow, brought to you by the Olympics? Hype, right? At least that's what the committee at the Olympics thought when they were choosing these games. So let us run these picks down, shall we? But before we get to the flash games that they're peddling as real titles, let's get the real games out of the way. First, we've got chess, which honestly I'm not sure if it counts as an esport because just playing it over a digital medium, I think that's just still a traditional game being played over a different board. And we've got Gran Turismo, so at least we've got two games that have highly competitive scenes. And if you don't know about Gran Turismo, it's one of the better racing simulators, and it even had an event called GT Academy where the top players got to actually train for real racing events, which was pretty cool to say the least. But that's also where our decent games list ends. I know, it was a really long list, but don't worry, the remaining entries are way better. And if you haven't busted out your Kinect in a while, you'll be happy to know that your favorite game, Just Dance, is an esport to corrupt boomers. Listen, Just Dance is a fun game to play and does have a niche competitive scene. But let's be honest, it's not much of a sport that people are looking forward to watching. And the only reason it even feels okay to have it on here as an esport is because of its popularity. And although I'm not going to sit around trying to gatekeep what's defined as an esport, the game's popularity comes from casual, not competitive. Now obviously, if you're looking for a real esport, the only thing in the market to consider is Power Pro Baseball, or WBSCE Baseball, whatever you want to call it. That game's also going to be part of this Olympics event. Just look at that gameplay, the movement, the graphics, a true beauty. For a single honest American dollar, you too could be a professional esports baseball athlete. Now, maybe you don't want to play baseball, right? You don't want to play e-baseball. You've got Tennis Clash instead. A through-and-through pay-to-win mobile game absolutely filled to the brim with microtransactions. But obviously having microtransactions in a game isn't goofy enough just yet, right? We've got even more for you. We've got an absolutely silly excuse for an esport. We've got virtual Taekwondo, which requires special equipment to play to make sure that it's accessed by as few people as possible. And it's not like virtual Taekwondo is well known either. But at least it's not as bad as a virtual regatta, which also sits alongside these games, and it was literally a browser game. It was then ported to mobile, but even then, another mobile game? Seriously? It's like the committee sat down and said, you know what, we'll find the most obscure and paywall blocked games there are and make our catalog out of that. And this is going to get even funnier when they start talking about things like accessibility, diversity, inclusion, and all that. But there's another angle to all of this, which is solely due to the inclusion of one game in particular. The god of archery games itself, a true masterpiece, Tic-Tac-Bow. The game looks like a high school project and has the functionality of one as well, but that is not what is sus about this game. The game came out not very long ago and only had around 150 downloads in total before it was included in the lineup for the Esports Week. Now, you must be thinking, that's nothing unusual for apps, right? There are tons of quick cash grabs made on a daily basis, and you would be right, but the game is made by a studio called Refract Technologies, which coincidentally also happened to make Virtual Taekwondo. But that's not where it stops. The founder of the studio is also an active commission member of the Global Esports Federation. Now, the head of esports over at the Olympics stated that the GEF is not involved officially, but still, having a developer who benefits from the inclusion of the game in the Olympics also be an active commission member of the Global Esports Federation raises some red flags. But we'll give them the benefit of the doubt here because they're not directly correlated. Obviously, it doesn't take a lot to put this together, and at least from a bird's eye view, it looks like Tic-Tac-Bow was just hastily included either through poorly informed research or potentially something more malicious than that, but we can't really say for sure in good faith. Excluding chess, the main problem with the full lineup of games is that these esports boomers are potentially taking the idea of esports a little too literally. We don't really perceive esports as just traditional sports being played on electronic devices. The truth is, most esports fans hardly want to watch someone dance for points or a cartoon baseball game. If people wanted to see that, they'd be popular as esports titles way before their inclusion in this circus show. Everyone wanted to see video games, like actual games that are played and loved by millions. Imagine how cool it could have been if we got to see, let's say, national teams for China and America compete for gold in Dota or Valorant. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Upon further investigation, it seems like the staff over at the Olympics have doubled down on their terrible decision-making. Vincent Pereira, head of esports at the Olympics, has gotten into multiple conversations over Twitter to validate their decision-making. Of course, as you'd expect from anyone trying to save their ass in a position of power, their responses are as politically window-dressed as possible. Jess, a leading caster and analyst for Valorant, voiced her concerns regarding the inclusion of pay-to-win games via a quote tweet. Vincent responded to this and stated that they had caps to avoid the pay-to-win situation. Then, of course, he goes on to feed you a nothing burger about accessibility, diversity, and inclusivity. He continues to state that they're listening to sports and gaming communities to create the best product reflecting Olympic values, where Cameron Davis, another commentator, questions why the sports community should directly be influencing esports decisions anyway. While Vincent continues to try and squirm out of the conversation, the pressure keeps piling on. Another tweet by Jess states that some of the games included are not only not an esport, but also inaccessible to many countries precisely because of the pay-to-win features and that they're predatory. This obviously makes sense because the outcome of esports games should not be determined by how much money you pay the developer as a player. Also, in a response to one of Frankie Ward's tweets, he continued to be obscure about the inclusion of other actual established esports titles that have existing communities and let them slide under the banner of a to-be-announced thing. Also, there's a strange narrative about bridges between traditional and electronic sports and integrating them around some nebulous requirements by the organization, which aren't actually mentioned at all. Another Twitter user pointed out that it feels like the supposed esports titles are simply a gimmick to promote the real sports and earn money from the apps. Now, the truth of the matter is, this could either be just an event that has been poorly researched by the people in power because they simply don't understand esports, so it could be ignorance, or there's a chance that there's something malicious at hand, where there could potentially be foul play where developers could use their connections to make these games relevant to the Olympics for financial gain. Either way, this is either terribly handled at best or malicious at worst. That's it for the video. The story will most likely keep developing, and if any new big news comes out, I will make an update to this video.